has been a wonderful lecturer for a lot of our concerts. She always gets demands, you know, call her back, we want her. So this will be a great lecture and great concert.
Well, it's a fabulous concert. I don't think there's a word for what I'm looking for, but I'd like to propose a feeling. I can't describe it in words. Let me ask you, has anybody ever smelled the seasons? Have you ever smelled autumn? What's it like?
Oh, it's kind of the ending of a summer season, and familiar smells of
The leaves. In the east, where it's damp, you can smell the leaves turning. Yeah. Have you ever smelled snow coming?
Yes.
And there's sort of an anticipation that goes with that, and yet some uncertainty as to whether it will be a problem or whether it'll be fun. The word I'm looking for, I don't have a word for it, I'm not sure that there is a word, but it has something to do with the way you feel when time passes. I could give you one version of it is in Dvorak's song, Songs My Mother Taught Me. And the lyrics are approximately like this. When I was a little girl, I played outside, and I would play with my friends, and I would watch my mother standing in the doorway, and she would be crying, and I didn't know why she was crying. And now that I'm a mother, I stand in the doorway, and I watch my child playing in the yard, and tears come down my face. So what I'd like to see is if I can, with your help, get a sense of something that is warm and wonderful, and something that is a little bit sad and melancholy, the sense of time passing. So let's look at the 4 themes that are in the Schubert. They're pretty clearly articulated. They're on your first sheet. Schubert died at age 31. He was very prolific. He wrote this symphony, or at least the 2 movements we have, when he was 25. He never finished it in the last 6 years of his life. We don't really know why. That's certainly an unfinished beginning. It's called the Unfinished Symphony. But here are the 4 themes. The opening theme has 3 parts to it. And the first part is like this. What sort of emotional reaction would you get from this, just offhand? Any takers to characterize this theme?
Taking thought or something.
I'm sorry? Bear, yeah. Bear branches. Isn't there a Shakespeare quote about bear branches? Is it ominous?
Yeah. Foreboding.
What?
Foreboding.
Foreboding? Maybe. Is it happy?
No.
Is it cheerful?
No.
Is it sad? Maybe. Is it a theme of a young person? This is somebody who has some perspective on things, right? Okay, the second theme is a little bit easier to characterize. I called it restlessness. Would you agree that restlessness characterizes that? Susurration, some sort of a rustling, some sort of a movement is going to occur. Is it easy enough to accept? Okay. And the third part of this first theme is also very easy. By the way, notice that this little motive in the opening theme, this rising third, is right there. The second theme is the one that everybody knows. Reactions to how would you characterize that bum, 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 that theme? Is it sad, happy, young, old, comforting, ominous?
Yes. I think confident.
Very
confident.
Comforting, okay.
Confident. Confident.
Confident.
She's confident.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I think it sounds young.
Young? Mm-hmm. It sounds hopeful in a way. It sounds positive looking. So, then you get to guess how Schubert ends the first movement. Does he end it with a young, positive, hopeful, confident, comforting theme? Or does he end it with the very first theme? It's right on your papers, obviously. He does end it with the last theme. So the question is, at this ending, what are we to make of this ending? What does this ending make us feel? How do we feel?
That it's too late.
Pardon me?
It's too late. That's what it makes me feel like.
It's too
That
late,
whatever happens,
hopeless.
it's too late to fix it.
So hopeless.
Yeah.
I was thinking quite that. It's more of feeling of nostalgia. Not so much hopeless, but definitely that it's too late.
Reflection.
May I play the last part? Just the last, where he does use that first theme. It's too late, And what was your caveat on that?
Nostalgic, but the way you just played that, I thought it was kind of ominous.
It sounded resignation, resign to whatever happened. Acceptance and resign.
Is it a little bit like the way summer ends? You know, summer ends.
Yes.
Fall is coming. The leaves are going, the trees are going to be bare. It's going to be cold. Your friend might die, but you're going to continue. There's a sense of time passing, I think. I don't know the word for this. It's not Weltschmerz. It's not a sorrow and pain of the world. It's not a Liebesschmerz. It's not a love pain. There's a Schmerz. There's a pain, a sadness, but it's a mixed thing. So, looking at the ending, you might also adjust your image of what the beginning is. I don't know. Does anybody have a word for what I'm trying for? Do you know what I mean? Know this feeling that time has passed and you have regrets, and yet you understand it, and you also remember the warmth of friendship and the warmth of summer, if you will. You didn't get that.
No, I really didn't. I got a feeling of impending doom.
Okay.
A lot of it. Because it was ominous and a little frightening. Okay.
I thought it was resignation.
That's fair.
It was what?
It was resignation. He started off, he was melancholic, I think. He was down. And then, out of suddenly, you thought he was finding a little bit of himself.
Trying to what?
Find himself a little more. He was trying to say something. But then at the end, it was like resignation because it wasn't what he expected. He wanted to say something and he couldn't do it. That's how I feel. I mean, everybody can feel different. But I feel like this.
Now, there is a German word for that, and that word is beklemmt.
Yeah,
And Beethoven uses it. That's when you feel so deeply you can't get it out.
I don't think he was beklemmt. He just simply, he was a musician. He hadn't found himself maybe yet completely. You know, he died so young when he wasn't.
And he knew that he was ill when he
But
was
the
writing.
point is that I think he tried to say something in this piece that he wanted to tell us something, but he didn't get it across.
I would say that the little point just made about that he knew he was ill, that this expression of music at that point is foreboding. Anxiety is not the right word, but it's foreboding almost a capitulation to the inevitable. And none of us, I'm sure very few of us, can know what it would be like to be in that state of mind. And it's amazing that he continued to write at the level he did, and still he was sending us some kind of message about how he felt better.
I'd like to play for you something that is not on the concert, but it is the subject of the quote that's at the bottom of the first page. And that characterizes, as well as I think anybody has, the feeling I've been trying to describe of the warmth and happiness and joy, as well as the sorrow and the regrets and it being too late of time passing. So as I play the second movement of this last piano sonata, if you don't mind reading that attachment, and this is the quality of Schubert that many people experience. In fact, it's known as Schubert. That sums up this sort of retrospective, melancholy and warm. So this is the slow movement of the B-flat sonata. Now, that's one kind of ending. There's a very different kind of ending to the Beethoven Overture. The Beethoven Overture was the first overture he wrote to his only opera, Fidelio. Fidelio is the story of a strong young woman who rescues her husband. The opera is summarized for you on your paper. I'm going to get all else fails.
I know, I've heard opera. I've heard the word opera.
Well, Fidelio?
Are there chamber operas? Chamber.
This is an overture, so this is just the orchestral introduction to his opera. And this is the overture that was probably played when the opera was first produced in 1804. The unfinished quality of it is that Beethoven was very unsatisfied with this. He wrote 3 more overtures before he felt he got it right. I would say that this overture has a happy, gleeful ending where you know everything comes about in the right way. Right prevails, duty and honor, perseverance, loyalty, courage, all of those values are victorious. The overture starts with a very long, slow, plaintive line. Then there's a little bit of busy work, which is the ending theme. And then in the middle is the most famous aria from the opera. This is an aria after a long recitative where Florestan is a young nobleman who has accused the local prison warden of corruption. And this warden, Don Pizarro, falsely accuses Florestan, imprisons him, and is slowly starving him to death. In this aria, Florestan has a long recitative where he says, "God, why did you do this to me?" And then he sings very sweetly of his remembered days of springtime when everything was wonderful and he was living peacefully with his wife. What happens after he's been in prison is his wife, a young woman named Leonore, comes to rescue him. She disguises herself as a man, calls herself Fidelio or Faithful, and gets a job in the jail, in the dungeon where Florestan is being held. And after some dramatic action, she rescues him. But I'd like to have us look at the aria of Florestan, because this occurs in the overture basically as a slow movement in the middle. And Susan has agreed to come and sing this for us. And then I wondered if possibly we might learn just these few measures of the aria. And I think what this will do is, when the slow part comes in this overture, you will not be bored, you will not be let down. Hopefully you'll be thinking of Florestan in his dungeon, singing his heart out. So I'll give you an introduction of the...
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
Actually, I didn't look at the introductions.
Well, it's just the same thing, so. Would you like to take us through this?
Sure. Do we want
In des Lebens.
Okay. In des Lebens.
In des
I
Lebens.
mean, you've got the words right there, so those of you that have live journeyed before. In des Lebens Frühlingstagen.
Frühlingstag.
Ist das Glück
Ist das Glück
von mir geflohen?
von mir geflohen? Once more, please, just say.
In des Lebens Frühlingstagen ist das Glück von mir geflohen.
Okay, so your first musical line to go with this is like this. Okay, can we try that? And. Now comes a little hard part. Frühlingstagen. And. Just that much?
Let's go from In des Lebens, the whole thing. I mean, that first phrase.
What does it mean?
Right, well, in the springtime days of life, happiness.
Speaking of the smelling the seasons and thinking back and as time passes, in the springtime days of my life, it was so wonderful, but luck deserted me. Luck flew away from me. Happiness flew away. Thank you, Susan.
Sandra Damon, also she's in our board.
Yeah, that's what she's
Very treasure.
Okay. I'd like to just show you this ending and ask you what kind of emotional reaction you get from this ending. Okay, very different from the Schubert. This is the ending of the Beethoven Overture, the first overture he wrote to his opera Fidelio. What does that tell you as an ending? Joyful? Gleeful? Yes, a parade that's swirling happy dance. It's total glee, right? There's no subtext to this ending. This is distinctly happy. Okay? And Beethoven.
Dancing naked in the dandelion.
Yes, indeed. And Beethoven was not satisfied with it. So that's an interesting thought, isn't it?
That would beg the question as to what did he write that did satisfy him and how different was it?
Oh, well, the second and third The third overture is very famous. It's Lenore 3. And it has a similar sort of offbeat bottom. Let's see. And it's basically a full orchestra piece. It gives away the opera totally. You know exactly what happens. It's done and over. I mean, he wrote a symphony for an overture, and then he wrote another overture for the 1814 production. Because an overture shouldn't tell you everything, right? An overture should leave you, should whet your appetite. Okay, Fanny Mendelssohn. And my sense of the ending of this overture is that it's a real question mark. I'd really like to know what you all think after you hear the overture of what is the story Fanny is going to tell. Fanny Mendelssohn was raised in a fairly wealthy, very liberal family. She was given a wonderful education along with her famous brother Felix. She was raised on Bach. She could play all 48 preludes and fugues of the 2 volumes of the Well-Tempered by memory when she was 13. But she was also a woman, and she was expected to behave as a woman. So we have a little dramatic reading here. This is Abraham Mendelssohn, Fanny's father, who is writing to her about how she should consider her music.
I'll commence.
Okay.
What you write to me about your musical occupations with reference to and in comparison with Felix was rightly thought and expressed. Music will perhaps become his profession, whilst for you it can and must only be an ornament, never the root of your being and doing. We may therefore pardon him some ambition and desire to be acknowledged in a pursuit which appears very important to him, because he feels a vocation for it, whilst it does you credit that you have always shown yourself good and sensible in these matters. And your very joy at the praise he earns proves that you might, in his place, have merited equal approval. Remain true to these sentiments and to this line of conduct. They are feminine, and only what is truly feminine is an ornament to your sex.
A loving father of his time. So now we have Fanny writing, this is several years later, I think, but describing how she felt about this life. She continued writing. She wrote a lot of pieces, 400 or 500 pieces. She had salons. She had gatherings in her house where her music would be played. But the piece you're going to hear tonight is her only full orchestra piece. And that is because she could not assemble an orchestra to play her pieces in public. And this is how she felt.
Once a year, perhaps, someone will copy a piece of mine or ask me to play something special, certainly not oftener. And now that Rebecca has left off singing, my songs lie unheeded and unknown. If nobody ever offers an opinion or takes the slightest interest in one's productions, one loses in time not only all pleasure in them, but all power of judging their value. Felix, who is alone sufficient public for me, is so seldom here that I cannot help me much, and thus I am thrown back entirely on myself. But my own delight in music and Handel's sympathy keep me awake still, and I cannot help considering it a sign of talent that I do not give it up, though I can get nobody to take an interest in my efforts.
She began publishing her works in 1846. She died a year later. And you will hear different themes in this overture. Something dramatic is definitely happening, and I'm not sure what it is. You'll hear a theme of true love and nobility, simplicity, and the age-old values being borne out. And you'll hear some busy work. Somebody, a different character, is decorating the halls, preparing ironing the clothing, scrubbing the floor, some sort of Figaro type busy work is going on here. So you'll hear different characters. I encourage you to pay particular attention to the very last cadence. It's full of surprising chords. Something strange is occurring. So I think Fanny really marshals what an overture should do. She gives you a taste of the action. She shows you there are different characters that you will recognize if once you hear the opera, which was never written. And then she leaves you with big question marks. And my question for you is, given her background, what kind of story would she tell? I really don't know. But it really makes me wonder what kind of story would appeal to her. Very sophisticated in these salons. She's dealing with the most celebrated poets and painters and musicians of the day. Her music is praised by public musicians. She's the older sister of Felix. She's good. She knows she's good. And she is just getting started a year before she dies in terms of public recognition. I don't have time for the last piece. It is analyzed a little bit on your sheet, but I want to thank you very much for coming out today. And if you remember one thing, please remember Schubert. Go up and get seats.